Hi, Girl Scouts. It's great to see you. And I am Katie Herstein, and I am the Program and Events Manager at Girl Scouts of Colorado. And in my job, I get to be the lucky one who gets to host this virtual series for Girl Scouts, where we introduce our Girl Scouts to a bunch of accomplished women in a variety of professions. So you can begin to be inspired about what your own future is going to look like. So College Invest is our partner, and College Invest, it's a Colorado's college savings program, and it makes it easy for you to save for your education after high school. So basically, College Invest is like a piggy bank, but it's even better because the money that your parents or caregivers or birthday money put into your College Invest account, it grows and grows. And when you take it out to use it for educational expenses past high school, it's tax-free to you. So your money goes even further. So it can be used to send you to college just about anywhere in the country, or a trade school, or an apprenticeship program, which gives you real world work experience. So different variety of ways to use College Invest savings. We're going to hear a quick message from College Invest CEO.
Hi, I'm Angela Beyer, CEO of College Invest, and welcome to this episode of Inspiring Futures. Through Girl Scouts, you've learned that if you can dream it, you can do it. And here at College Invest, Colorado's education savings program, we help you get there. And you're never too young to begin to imagine your inspired future. So how will you impact this world? Will you run your own business, invent a new technology, or maybe even discover a life-saving cure? But wherever your inspiration takes you, a College Invest savings plan can help make your dreams a reality. Now, prepare to be inspired.
Thank you, Angela. So a few housekeeping items. So we are recording this session, which you heard, and it will be going up onto our YouTube channel. So we will, let me just fix something. There we go. We will be recording this and putting it up onto our YouTube channel, which has Inspiring Futures recordings. And so we're happy to see your faces now. It won't be on the recordings once I edit it onto YouTube. Or you can use the chat to ask questions. That's no problem too. So next we'll move over to our Girl Scout promise and law. So here we go. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. The Girl Scout law is I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. All right. So we have 3 women here from Kephart, and they're going to be talking to us about the world of architecture, what their roles are, and their educational experiences, and things that will inspire you to hopefully be an architect someday. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce you to our guests.
Hi guys, I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you see it. Can you see it now?
Yeah,
cool.
We can.
Great. So I'm Erin. I'm with Kephart. I'm not on the screen, so I will let these 3 wonderful ladies introduce themselves and Kephart and who we are and what they do. Take it away, guys. Nicole can go first because she's the first picture.
All right. Yes, I'm the first picture. My name's Nicole Williams. I'm with Kephart Architects. I have been with Kephart for 10 years. I've been in architecture for 25 years, which makes me feel very old right now. I got my degree at the University of Kansas and moved to Colorado to practice architecture because it's so wonderful here. Before that, I was at an all-girls high school, and we were really encouraged to do exactly what you guys are thinking of, anything you want. So I really encourage you, if this is of interest, pursue it, because you can make an impact in your built environment. Cece?
All right. Hi, I'm Cece Straving, and I have been with Kephart since college. So I have been with the company for 15 years now. I was an intern at Kephart, and then I went off and did my own thing, and then came back and I've been working full time for Kephart since. I went to CU Boulder, and I got my Bachelor's of Environmental Design at that school, and then I moved out to LA and got my master's at a small school called Woodbury University. And so if you're interested to know the process of school, there's 2 ways to go about it. You could do the 4+2, which would be 4 years of your bachelor's and 2 years of your master's, or you could do the 5-year bachelor program, and all of that works towards becoming an architect. So I got into architecture just simply by loving art and math at the same time, and I wanted to find a career that suited both, and that's how I ended up in architecture.
All right. I am Andrea, and I have been with Kephart for 3.5 years and have been practicing architecture in one form or another for the past 25 years. I actually started off in interior design, and that is what my bachelor's degree is in. And then I went on to get my master's of architecture, and have been practicing on that side ever since. And I will go ahead and start with our first few slides. Women at Kephart. So we have approximately 70 employees who are practicing any form of design with Kephart. And of those, 39% are women practicing this. That is, I believe, almost 30 women out of the 70. So that's a fairly high number for this field. And I think that we are able to say that Kephart has that high of a number simply because they are committed to the improvement and the diversity and helping us become better participants. And they're very supportive of that. Of those 70 people, 24% are licensed. That's for women and men. And a total of 3 women currently have their full license, with several others who are currently taking the exams. There's a few exams that you have to take in order to get your license. Yeah, so there's that. And then this is a good example of how we start and how we kind of get to the end of our project. So you'll see in the upper corner a rendering that our initial designers will do. They will meet with the client and the owner, and they will get an idea of what they're looking for and what they're trying to do and what their idea is for their project. And then they will do a quick little sketch study, which you see in the corner. And then once they have that ironed out, they will go on and do a more hard-lined rendering, which is the larger photo that you see there in the lower side.
So from there, from the studio team will take those designs, and what we'll do is we'll develop it further and produce these drawings called construction documents. And so you can see that that same corner starts to become real on paper. We'll show how big something is through dimensions. We'll show where all the windows are, what kind of materials are going to be used on the exterior. And then you'll see in plan at the bottom left how it works. I guess in plan means like as your walk, like if you were to walk through that space and how it looks on paper. And then what we see above are elevations, which are what you see when the building is upright. And then the bottom right is a detail. And so that shows you in depth how we build a building. So there's all sorts of details in these projects. What I like to tell my team a lot is that design does not stop at the pretty pictures that you saw on the previous slide. Design is in every single detail. It's in those elevations, it's in those plans, it's down to those little small pieces and it's almost like Legos. How do you fit everything together to build the building? So this is the next step. So this is a bit more in depth of how we develop our plans. So Kephart is known for doing multifamily products, which means mostly apartment buildings, but we do anything from small projects like townhomes all the way up to the big high rises that you see downtown. And so what you're seeing right here is a unit plan. So if you were to rent out an apartment space, this is what your apartment would be. This one is a 1-bedroom apartment. So you can see that it has a kitchen, a living space, and a bedroom. And so these are like those Legos. We have a lot of different kinds of units and we place them all together to build a whole building.
So once CC's team puts together all the documents that tell the construction team how to build the building, we get to the phase that I work in, and that's the construction administration phase. And so what I do is I help the contractor by answering questions that they have when they're building the building. So these are some pictures of that same building that we first had a blank canvas and an idea about, and then we documented exactly how we wanted it to be built. And then in the construction phase, we go step by step with the contractor and answer any of their questions that may be unclear about how it's going to be built from the drawings that we gave them. I go on site on a weekly basis. We have meetings in a trailer on site. And when it starts, it's just dirt. And a couple of years later, we've got a building.
And this is that final building. So it started as renderings and sketches, and then it goes to Cece's team and it becomes drawings, and then it goes to Nicole's team and they work with the contractors to solve problems, and then it becomes this. So this building is right off the highway, so some of you guys might actually recognize it, mostly from the picture on the left as you drive by, probably too fast. It's called the Henry, and it is one that we worked on. So from there, I kind of want to go through some questions. I saw one in the chat if any of you guys want to answer it. I love building and figuring out how to build stuff, but I hate math. Is there any way I could go into architecture and avoid most of the numbers? I'm gonna stop sharing.
I'll answer that one. So definitely there is a possibility to do that. You heard Andrea went into interiors and as the beginning of her career, and how interiors do a lot of what it means, interior of the building. And so there's a lot more design work to that. But even in architecture, you can do a lot of design work without needing to love math. You can exactly what those two first images that we showed with the rendering and the sketch are. We have a whole design team at our office that is not solely focused on the more technical side of architecture, which would mean like what I do with the drawings and all of that. And so they do a lot of drawings and design work all day long. And that's what they do.
I think it's also worth noting, Cece, that the most complicated math in the buildings, we hire somebody else to do for us. So you don't have to be a math genius. Most of what we do is pretty simple, and we have structural engineers and mechanical and electrical and plumbing and civil engineers that help us work on a project. So there are a lot of resources you can rely on. It's not all you. It's also kind of what we alluded to is it's never one person, right? It's a lot of people involved on putting a project together. There's the design team, but even like CC's team that is doing the drawings is not just CC. There's a lot of people on a project that you're working with that everybody has different skills, and that's a good thing. We don't all want to be good at the same stuff because then we don't get a really good design in the end.
Yeah, and to just jump on to what you said about a team, Erin, you know, the way that architecture works, it's all collaborative. You know, nothing is ever by ourselves. You know, just exactly like Erin said, we rely on other people to help us solve problems and get to the finish line. And, you know, my team can vary between 3 to 4 people, but there are teams that are 2, there are teams that are 6. It just, it doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, Kephart is a whole, and we are always there to support each other. So I'm constantly going to Nicole or Andrea or Erin for questions all day long.
Yeah, great. Does anybody else have any other questions for the ladies here?
I have a question. This is Katie. So before you, so that I understand it, I thought it was for residential buildings that a sales office would have to sell a certain number of units in the building before the building gets made. Is that correct? No. So the building, so you can have 0 people committed to buying the units in a building and you still build it.
Yeah, so what we do is for rent work. I think what you're trying to ask is more for sale work, which are condos or so we do some condos. There's some different rules around it, and so it's a little bit harder to get around, and so we don't do those as much. But for rent work, you have a developer and they fund it themselves. They go and find people that are willing to commit to this project with them, and they fund it themselves. And we as the designers help them develop that, and it comes to fruition. And then they hire a management team that will end up renting it out for them. So there is that aspect where some people do have to commit in order to be able to build it, but that's more on the for sale side. And maybe Nicole or Andrea know more about it, but we don't do too much of that.
Right. No, I think you described it well. Many developers won't want to risk building an entire project unless they have a certain amount of buyers. So that's where that trigger point is. There's also requirements that some of the different cities put on developers so that they make sure a project gets built out completely, because the last thing you want is, a building and half of it's vacant, or a neighborhood and there's only 3 homes and the rest of it's just still under construction. So I think that describes it.
I think it's also projects have to pencil, is what we call it. So there's a lot of factors that go into how many units and how big of a building they can get to give them that payoff to be worth it. So it's not quite the same, but on the rent side, there is a lot of discussion around how many units, what mix of different types of units between studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom do we have in the building to make it a worthwhile project for that developer to build. Does that answer the question, Katie?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And then I have another question about buildings, and we talked about this actually in the session with the younger Girl Scouts, but I wanted to mention it here too, is just whether you are always fabricating, or if that's the right word, buildings from, empty lots, or there are existing buildings that come down, or there are existing buildings that get repurposed and reused. Do you do all of those types of things?
So I would say at Kephart, we can do all of those types of things. It's a little bit uncommon for us to work on a project that demolishes a building and starts fresh, but we have done some like historic preservation type projects where we put apartments in. One of them was an old bank building. So, Okay. At Kephart, it's, residential and multifamily and low income housing, affordable housing, all sorts of different types of housing. But there are other areas of architecture that we could have gone into. So, we could be building anything.
Sorry, that was my fault. I clicked on the recording. I was trying to
Oh,
pull
that's
up
okay.
chat just in case somebody in there asking a question.
Okay.
No problem.
I think I mentioned this with the younger girls too, but kind of what Nicole was saying, that there's a lot of different avenues and fields and parts of architecture, is that if you walk through the building or you walk under a structure, that probably involved an architect in designing it and drawing it. So if you really love healthcare, you can help design rehab facilities or hospitals or cancer centers or whatever you can think of that is a building somebody uses that takes an architect.
And another reason I got into architecture was like CC, I liked math and art, but I also liked the thought of creating places that people enjoy. That's a big draw, to be able to create something that really impacts how people feel or how their day goes or something like that. So that was another thing for me personally that drew me into this profession. I don't know, Andrea, what about you?
I'll say that when I was practicing interior design, I was living in Atlanta, and I'm currently living in Colorado. And I had actually gotten my master's with the intention of going back to Atlanta and working again in interior design. But I had a cousin who lived in Colorado and invited me out, and that's kind of how I landed in Colorado and started practicing architecture. And I love the detail. I like to get into the detailing of everything and how everything goes together. So I'm very much on the construction side. I'm on construction administration. So I work with Nicole, and I'm on site right now in Florida. So yeah, we travel not just in Colorado, but we will travel around to wherever our projects are so that we can watch them go up. But that's kind of how I ended up where I am now. But yeah, it's a process. I have friends who they have their degree in architecture, and they are what's called a director of facilities at some universities. And what that means is that they are very high level. They're just kind of helping design and direct the direction that the university and the campus, new buildings and old buildings, how they are rehabilitating those, making sure all of that is going smoothly and is meeting the requirements for the university so that they can continue to grow and meet the needs of the students. So getting your degree in architecture sounds like it could be a very narrow field, but it's extremely wide. There's such a variety of things that you can do with the degree in architecture.
Yeah, and I was going to say something about that as well, because I have a lot of friends that we all went to architecture school, right? I think apart from Andrea, Aaron and Nicole and I, we did more that linear path. You went to architecture to build buildings, and and we can even talk about what kinds of buildings you could even get into. Kephart's really only focused on apartment buildings, but there are so many other building types you can get into. But I have friends that ended up becoming jewelry designers, or I have friends that became just true artists. That's all they do. Some people went into competition work, so all they do is design for a building and hope to win. So it's mostly publicly funded, so like a museum. Some people, I don't know if everyone knows this brand, but there's an ice cream brand called Cool Haas, which is a play on a name of a famous architect named Koolhaas. And it's just spelled with a K versus a C. So, some people go and do very creative things out in the world with their architectural background. It doesn't have to be building buildings, but it's really, there's so many options out there.
That's really interesting. So these girls are in middle and high school. So Aaron had mentioned in the previous one, drafting classes. Is there anything else in addition to drafting classes that colleges would be looking for to get into their architectural program?
Know that there are any other requirements to get into architecture school. I think many people that apply for the architecture schools have a lot of art background, and creativity, I think, is something that they're looking for. So, if you can show creativity on your applications, I think that would.
Yeah, good for your college essays.
Right.
Yeah, and I've heard about some schools requiring a portfolio, but it's not necessary. And like like we've all talked about, you don't have to take that straight and narrow path either. My first year of college was actually not in architecture. I probably should have mentioned that. I went to school for graphic design and 3D animation, and I thought that I was going to be working for Pixar or something like that. Turns out I wasn't that much of a fan of it, so that's why I ended up going straight into architecture, where my passions really were. But a lot of that was able to transfer over. So, you don't really have to take that path just to get into architecture school. You could try something else first and then see if that lands where you want it to be.
Great, that's great to get that information. I try to put my hat on as a teenager and think of all the things that I would have asked myself if I was, could turn back time and ask these questions. Girls, do you have any other questions that you'd like to ask or curiosities? I know one question that Girl Scouts often ask is, how many hours do you work with that life work balance?
Well, the right answer, of course, is that when you love what you do, you never go to work. It's always a joy. But I'll let Andrea give the probably better answer.
I will say that it can be dependent on the company that you're working for. There are some that are, especially the ones that are very competitive and going into competitions, the closer you get to the competition, the more hours that you put in. But I would say that Keppert is very aware and encourages a work-life balance. And I believe that a lot of the firms out there are realizing that, we all need a work-life balance. We love what we do, but you can't live your entire life with a firm. So we have to go out and have fun too. And that's actually part of what Keppert has. We have a motto that says, everyone deserves a well-designed place to live, work, and play. And so that live, work, and play is something that they want all of us to experience. Living isn't just at work. So, and we all like to play. So.
Yeah, that's great to hear. At Girl Scouts of Colorado, mental wellness and health is very important to us, to make sure that our Girl Scouts, growth in their mental capacity and things like that, it's a goal of ours. And so to know that companies out there are also listening to their employees with balancing work and enjoyment of your own personal life is amazing, because it shouldn't all be work.
I think it's good to mention, in the slideshow, there's a little bit of a graph showing the increase of women in the profession. And I think as maybe it's our fault, and I'd like to take credit for the fact that women are starting to change the industry, and it's becoming a better industry. It used to be really high working hours, low work-life balance, but a lot of firms out there are adjusting that as people like Nicole jump into leadership and help make some of the decisions of how a company is run, that it does become a lot more flexible. It becomes possible to be a mom and have your career like CC has, and people are willing to work with each other and work with each other's schedules to make sure your life can still happen. While the work is important, your life is equally as important. And that is changing in the industry every day. It gets better.
Yeah, it has changed a lot since I started in this industry. When I started, you could expect, a 60-hour work week just right out of the gate. And then if you had deadlines or projects or things like that, you were working, well into the night, things like that. But I believe that most weeks, when you're working for Kephart, you're putting in a 40-hour week, and you're enjoying your life. And I think that's really important.
Awesome, thank you. Well, anybody else have a question or a comment?
What type of building like structure do you tend to build the most?
I guess I can answer that. My team, we mostly build the larger buildings. So what you saw in the slideshow was actually one of my projects, the Henry. That one has 400 units, it's 7 stories. So a lot of my projects are between 4 to 7 stories, but we have a lot of high-rise projects on the horizon. So those can go up to 13, 14 stories. But really, like I mentioned earlier, our company will do anything from 2-unit duplexes to townhomes to sorry, I was going to say condos, but we don't do as many condos, but condos can be small or large. We have projects that have 20 units versus projects that have 400, 500.
Yeah, I think CC also, something to add to that is CC works on a lot of the larger projects, which are often steel structure with metal studs. And then the lower projects, which cap out about 5 stories, are built with wood studs. So we do both. We also have some projects that's called a podium, where the first floor is a concrete structure with a wood structure above. Well, it's usually 2 floors are concrete and then structure above. So there's a lot of mixes of different types of construction. There's also different levels of construction in terms of the protection of the building and how big it can get, and the limitations in size for how many people are in the building or what type of use that building is. That's part of our job, is evaluating that and finding the right construction type, right material use, and the right size for the space. Does that answer the question?
Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Okay, and I think I thought of another one, another question. Does somebody come to you for you to bid on a project, or how do you get these projects?
Is this on me again? Okay. There are several ways that projects come to us. So either we go out and seek them, or like you asked, we are asked to bid on one. But most of the time, most of our projects are actually through developers that we've worked very hard to create a really great relationship with. So a lot of our projects come to us word of mouth, knowing that we're a great company to work with, and so they bring their projects to us. But a lot of our clients are repeat clients, and that's how we keep getting the projects in our door, and produce great work. So
also sometimes, sorry, Katie, sometimes the projects come to us and it's just an evaluation to see if it works. So it doesn't always become a building. We get a lot of clients that just come to ask us like, hey, I want to put an apartment on here. How big can I get it? How many units can I get on this? Does that work for this site? Is it possible? So we'll do a lot of those studies, and a lot of times those become a project that we ultimately take on. But like Cece said, sometimes it is us going after a project. If we have a market, like a type of project or a geographical area we really want to work in, then we'll start developing a presence there and going to conferences and trying to talk to people to get to know people and become a person that they want to call when they have a project ready.
And then I think where bidding comes into play more often is in the construction phase. So we wrap up the documents for construction and we get a permit from the city, and then the contractors bid against each other to see, you know, who can build it for either the least amount of time or the least amount of money. And then the developer chooses based on what's most important to them. So that's more of the phase that bidding comes into play.
Great, thank you. I think that was my last question. I'm a very curious person, so I've always filled with lots of questions for people.
I hope there are other questions from the girls on the call as well, but I did want to touch upon one thing I mentioned earlier that we didn't get to cover was the types of buildings that architecture we can do in architecture.
Mhm.
And we talked a lot about apartment buildings because that's what Kephart does. But you can really build anything. Erin mentioned medical facilities. You can do educational facilities like schools, so any kind of school up to universities. You could do federally funded buildings like City Hall, places like that. You can do commercial buildings. You can do retail. You can do shopping malls. Really anything that is a structure, you can build it.
Great.
So what are the girls on the call interested in?
Yeah, is anybody taking a drafting class at school or anything else that sort of encouraged you to come on tonight and see what this world is all about?
Not really, but I enjoy building pillow forts.
Yeah.
That still counts. I actually originally, when I was looking at going to school, I was actually looking at stage design. So like theater sets and designing those and building those. And I almost went to school for it. But then I was like, you know, why not go bigger, build the whole building, and then maybe I could scale down if I wanted to. And I haven't yet. Still doing the buildings because they're really fun and complicated and challenging, and every day is different and you're constantly learning, which means you're never bored. And it's just, you love to see and walk through what you put together. So you start drawing something and then Nicole and Andrea take it and like make it this beautiful building, and we get to walk through it and see how it gets used. And you're like, man, I drew this.
Right.
The first one I ever remember, my internship, I worked on a hospital and I did something as small as the tile layout in a bathroom, but still walking through that bathroom was like, I placed these, like that was me, which is pretty cool.
That's
Erin, I was
awesome.
gonna say, if you had actually gone into set design, you could have gone into theme park design as well. You could have worked for Disney. At
I know,
one
could have
point,
been cool.
I almost interned at Disney, and I wish I took that job.
Yeah. But apartments are great too, Cece.
I know.
They're basically Disney.
I really do love working at Kephart, but there's a part of me that kind of wishes I
Yeah.
went to Disney at one point. So.
Yeah.
Right. We had a Disney on Inspiring Futures a few weeks ago, actually.
Oh, really?
Their
Oh,
guest
so cool.
experience, but they talked about all the different types you can have, jobs you can have at Disney. It was pretty fascinating. Great. All right, well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear from you all and to hear about the world of architecture, all the different things that girls can do. And girls, if you want to unmute and thank these lovely people for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome.
Thank you for
Great.
joining us.
Yeah, and if you have any further questions that you think of later today or tomorrow or the next day, please let me know and I will make sure I get those questions to Erin and we can get some other answers for you. Great, well, thanks again. And this is our last Inspiring Futures of the school year. And so we're going to be taking a break for the summer. We're going to be back with other guests in the fall. So thank you for joining me tonight to wrap up our series.
Grand finale.
Yeah, the grand finale, drum roll. All right, thanks so much. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll see you another time.